Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Where Have You Been Lately? Brought to you by the Boyertown Museum. We'd like to find some cool spots for you to visit or travel to or stop on your road trip. So, Dan.
What?
Where have you been lately?
Oh, where have I been lately?
Yes.
I did this back in July. 4th of July weekend, I went to Western PA. And I ended up, actually it was a couple races I went to, and they were close by, so I had some time in between the two nights to travel around. And I was in northwest Pennsylvania, and that's oil country.
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of motorized stuff, which I like. I went to a town there called Franklin, and where I parked my car, it's a county seat, but the building next to where I parked my car was a Pennzoil headquarters back in the 30s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's that kind of stuff. There's a town called Oil City, and that's actually where Pennzoil started. I ended up getting lost in that city. It's not that big of a town, but
Not anymore, probably.
With the mountains and the way the river and the creek and everything, it was, it was not like nice grid pattern like Boyertown is. Also up in that area is Titusville, where back in 1859, Edwin Drake drilled for the first oil well, okay, successfully. So anyway, so that's that whole area. It's all oil up there, and a lot of things, reminders of that, and also the natural gas industry was big up there. Anyway, 1859, Drake had his well. Within a half a year, over 500 wells were built along Oil Creek. Okay,
wow.
I don't know how long of a creek this is. Were they 500 within a half mile or 10 miles or 20 miles? I don't know. But anyway, well, there's another little town up there, and it's called Pithole, Pithole. I've heard of this place before, and so I thought, I got the time, I'm going to go there. So let me tell you about Pithole. 1864, okay, we're in the Civil War here. In January of 64, a gentleman called Isaiah Frazier leased 35 acres of farmland along Pithole Creek, okay? That creek's name was named after a nearby stinking crack in the ground, okay? And I assume it was sulfur coming up. Well, the Pithole is still there, but it's off limits. It's on private property. But as much as I wouldn't want to smell it, my curiosity would say, I'd want to get near it. It's like just point to it or something. So anyway, so that was leased. That 35 acres was leased from the farmer there, and that was in January of 64. January of 65, 1 year later, another well was struck, or a well was struck up there, called the Frazier Well. 2 weeks later, the twin wells were just south of Frazier Well was struck oil. In May of 1865, this is the first important date here, two gentlemen, A.P. Duncan and George Prather, purchased the farm that was that part of the farmland here for $25,000 and a bonus of $75,000. I don't know what the bonus, how that came in or something.
75 or a stinking crack in there.
Included in that were portions that were still leased to this other company that I mentioned earlier, which was called United States Petroleum. Anyway, an area overlooking the wells was cleared out and the town was laid out, divided into 500 lots and put up for sale. So they were pretty much a developer there. Now I'm going to go back a ways here, and it talks, I came across something, they were talking about that farm that was leased out and stuff. And it says in the middle of this, I don't think they expected to find oil in those days. The thing was speculation. More money was made in speculating in oil stocks than in oil producing. It was easy to buy a tract of land, have some or fancy stock certificates printed up and peddle them in New York, Cleveland, Boston. Then you'd hope you struck oil. Speculators would sell stock for $100,000 for land that cost them $5,000. And later, the wells turned out to be dry holes. They'd tell the stockholders, too bad, fellas, we didn't find oil. Then they'd pocket the $95,000 and away they went.
It's like a big scam artist thing going.
Yeah, kind of scam.
Yeah.
But you know, now you probably
It's a
read
risk.
there's a lot with the car industry when it was starting out. Same
Yeah.
thing. Oil industry in the 1860s. Okay, it's big, and so
Yeah.
everybody wanted to get in. It's a great get rich quick
Yeah. Yep.
scheme. That's
Yep.
probably a better way to
Yeah.
describe it. So the guy who wrote what I just read, I came across an interview last night of him online, and it's a person called James Stevenson, and he actually bought that whole property back in the 50s, and he developed it, what it is now, sort of, okay? So anyway, let's go back to 1865 May. That's when these 500 lots of lands were divided up for sale. In July of that year, 2 months later, the population was estimated to be at least 2,000 people. So in 2 months, 2,000 people
Wow.
moved into this.
That's a big change.
Oh, it
And
gets
it's-
bigger. It gets
Oh.
bigger. Okay, that's July. September of that year, 2 months later, population now is 15,000 people. So from May, where it was just an empty farm, to September, 15,000 people. Wow. And you hear of ghost towns or these towns out in the west,
Yeah.
and you watch it on the movies and stuff. What goes on? Rod's out there. Okay. And it reminds me a lot of this. And as I'm going to be talking about the town, I can picture these towns out in like Nebraska
Yeah.
or Wyoming or
Yeah.
wherever, Texas. And so anyway,
Yeah, because it's like the gold. I mean, that was the same thing
yeah,
with
the
gold.
gold rush. There you go.
Speculating.
Yes.
But hey, you might not strike gold. Oh well.
Yeah. So in 1865, all this has happened. In November, the town was incorporated as a borough, the borough of Pithole.
Pithole.
Pithole. What a name. Okay. At its peak, the town had a total of 54 hotels. Most residents were temporary. There's where you need the hotels. Those hotels would be simple rooming homes to luxury hotels. The Astor
54
House,
hotels.
Pithole's first hotel, was built in one day. And then it said, a lack of insulation and gaps in the walls made conditions in the hotel miserable during the winter. So they didn't care. They were making their money.
Yeah.
Hopefully, okay, and they would deal with this. Okay, Pithole Post Office was the third busiest in the state behind Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Wow.
Thoughtfully, there was 3 churches built: a Catholic, Methodist, and Presbyterian. Now, with these towns, again, you look at these old gold rush towns.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can figure out the behavior of the people wasn't the best, and there weren't many women, and the
Yeah.
ones who were there were like, we'll say, professional ladies.
Yes.
Okay.
In the saloons and stuff.
So I
yeah.
guess the churches were put there, just in case.
Yeah.
All right. 1865, that same year it started in September, the Pithole Daily Record newspaper was started. Also, the September that same year, the largest building in town opened, a 3-story theater seating 1,100 people.
Wow.
Then it said every other building was a bar. So, interesting stuff. And this is Pennsylvania.
It is like a Wild West town.
And I came across something also. There was a guy back in the 50s who helped this James Stevenson here, and he had ancestors that went back to this area or this era. And one of them was, like his great grandmother or something like that, who's expecting a baby. And her family says, no, have the baby, go to Philadelphia, go to New York or
yes,
something, because
don't
there's still
stay there.
Indians too. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, I don't know how the Indians, the Native Americans were around there at
Can't
that time.
imagine the medical care would be that great,
No, I don't.
especially
yeah.
for a pregnant lady.
Yeah.
You know,
So here we are. We have all these oil wells and stuff, and people and hotels and everything else. Transportation of oil was relying on teamsters. Okay, notorious for treatment of their horses. The horses had a lifespan of a few months.
oh my gosh.
Okay, teamsters also refused to work on days when the roads were impassable and gouged the oil producer. I think the roads were impassable a lot.
Up there, yeah,
Yeah.
especially in the winter.
Okay.
My gosh.
Investors, well, we didn't even hit the winter yet.
That's true.
Right? Okay. Investors fed up with the Teamsters built a plank toll road
Hey.
from Pithole to, or wait a minute, from Pithole to Titusville, which is less than 10 miles. Okay.
Yeah.
October of 1865, world's first pipeline opened. It was 2-inch diameter, 5.5 miles long, connected Pithole with the Oil Creek Railroad, 81 barrels per hour operating. And eventually it went up to 2,500 barrels a day. So that 81 barrels per hour was equivalent to 300 teams working with a 10-hour shift, teams of teamsters and horses and stuff. So.
Okay, this is why we need 54 hotels.
And I figured the Teamsters always stayed on the right side of the road. So I don't think there were 2-lane roads. 1865, December, the Oil City and Pithole Branch Railroad was open. A few years later, it was abandoned. 1865, December, by Christmas, population now 20,000. So in May of 65, it just started. December. So that's 7 months later, 20,000 people. Think of 20,000. You know, Boyertown has like 3,500, 4,000, something like that. Yeah.
Incredible.
Also, 1865, second railroad was partially built but never finished. It was called the Reno, Oil Creek, and Pithole Railroad. Went bankrupt, was scrapped. Another innovation was developed was a railroad tank car. So they had two 80-gallon barrel wooden, two 80-gallon wooden tanks that were barrels mounted on a flat car. So that was that. And I thought that was, everything was interesting here. And the town was maybe 4 blocks by 4 blocks big. I mean, the one dimension was bigger than the other. So it was quite a bit, but still they were packed. Okay.
I'll say.
1866 in March, a chain of banks collapsed. Now, I don't know where that chain of banks were. Was it like Western Pennsylvania or was it New York with investors?
Yeah.
I don't know. Triggered a financial panic throughout the oil region. Speculators and potential investors stopped coming to Pithole. The price of oil dropped. Also that same year, actually a couple weeks earlier, a house caught fire. Flames were spread to other buildings by the wind. In 2 hours, most of Holmden Street, which is the main street, was gone. And also parts of a couple other streets. Yeah. I read something about a fire company. They had
I was just going to ask, they even have a fire company?
Like at one time they had 2 fire companies, and they would kind of get together, organize and stuff, and then disband right away. So I don't know if they were just
like a social club or something.
I don't know. They had enough other social clubs.
Something
Why
to
not?
do.
August of 1866, multiple fires burned down several city blocks, destroying 27 wells. December of 1866, okay? So we're talking December of 1865, 20,000 people. December of 1866, with all the fires and everything, population was 2,000. So it went from 0 to 20,000 to 2,000 in 19 months.
What a roller coaster.
1867, a lot of oil strikes everywhere else in that area. So people were leaving Pithole, often taking their houses and places of business with them. or just abandoning the property. It's just,
Wow.
yeah, it's wow. That's what I kept saying when I'm reading this stuff and when I actually
That's
visited there.
amazing.
Okay, in July of '67, newspaper was relocated to Petroleum City, or Petroleum Center, becoming a Petroleum Center Daily Record.
Wow.
1868, the Chase House, which was a luxury hotel, and Murphy's Theater were sold and moved to Pleasantville. At that time, Prather and Duncan, who started this whole thing, sold their interest, and Prather split an estimated $3 million with his two brothers and moved to Meadville. Duncan returned to Scotland with his fortune, which I guess was $3 million also. A lot of money back then.
That's a lot of money now.
Okay, 1870, United States Census. Population was 237. So there were still people there, kind of like Centralia.
Yeah.
There's still people there. 1877, August, borough charter Pithole was officially canceled.
Oh.
2 years later, remains of the city were sold back to Venango County for $4.37. 1886, the Catholic Church was dismantled and moved to Tionesta. The Methodist Church was kept in usable condition before taken down in 1930s.
Wow.
That was the whole city. That was
Wow.
nothing. Okay, so today
Yes.
I went there,
Yeah.
not knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a ghost town.
I was
Okay,
gonna say, what's left?
It's Corn Planter Township, which is an interesting name because it doesn't look like a farming area. Corn Planter, I believe, was the name of an Indian chief because I saw pictures and stuff.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, that's where it is. It's kind of in between Titusville, where the Drake Well is, and Oil City. You go up there, and it's pretty much in the middle of nothing.
Nothing.
Okay. The place was neglected until the mid '50s, and it was purchased by James Stevenson, and I read part of his stuff earlier. 1961, he donated the site to Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission.
Okay.
1972, visitor center was built with a small museum and a parking lot. And the parking lot's small too. Well, the streets are still there for the town, and they're just mowed paths. So it kind of looks like this overgrown field with trees, some trees growing up and stuff. But there's these paths you can walk, and there are the streets. And there's signs here and there of like, this is where the hotel was, and this is where the
Catholic
post office
was.
Yeah, and you can walk
yeah.
around, and I think if you dug around, you could probably see some foundations and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. So as they say, it's like 3 or 4 blocks square. It's not a huge amount, but it fills, I don't know, 30 acres maybe. Nah, not even that, probably half that. Okay. The center is open only on weekends during the summer, partially because the roads out there are treacherous, and they don't have a lot of funding out there too. And 1973 became listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So that's pretty much Pithole. Now, when I was traveling out there, this is another oil thing here. I'm traveling on Interstate 81 out there, and I'm going west, and I pass over the Allegheny River, and you're like 100 feet up, pretty high, and you look down this little valley, and you see this little town. I think, what a neat little town. So I check into my motel, and I look at the map, and I see, oh, that's Embleton, Pennsylvania. I'm thinking, oh, I have to stop.
Like Embleton?
No, Emlenton.
Oh, okay.
And I'm thinking, what a neat little town. And before I leave the motel, before going to Knox Raceway, I go in the motel lobby, and they have a walking tour. I said, oh, how about that?
Yeah.
And going to that racetrack that night, I actually went through that town. Well, before the weekend was over, I stopped in Embleton. I took a walking tour of the town, and it's built on the Allegheny River, and it's just this little sleepy town. Not many people live there and stuff, and it's a major place for kayaking and rafting right there in the river. And the landing
sense.
there and stuff. And a lot of people were there for that. But I also found out they had a huge presence for Quaker State oil. There's a huge refinery there.
Real.
And you look,
Wow.
where? You know,
Yeah.
it's just this little town, and it's really, and I think it was the president of Quaker State lived there at one time, and
Wow.
just a neat little area. And if you're interested in history and the oil industry, you head up there, and it's just stuff everywhere you look.
Yeah.
And it's just neat. So
It's so similar to like, I mean, it's like a coal town story on steroids.
yeah,
I mean, I just can't believe how quickly that shot up and then
yeah,
died.
yeah. From May of one year to December
Yeah.
of the next.
Because you had told me a little bit about this trip before, but not all that, the statistics and the detail. I just can't imagine.
Yeah. And you
Blink and you miss it.
go into the museum, and you know they're talking about it, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But they have a diorama set up,
Yeah.
and it's fantastic. I mean, it's really nice. And if you go on, I guess it's on their website, or you type Pithole, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I mean, there won't be multiple locations, okay? But anyway,
Not with a name like
there'll
Pithole.
be a picture of the diorama, and it's really well done, and you can kind of see it kind of in this sloping
Yeah.
hill. And so, yeah.
Man, I bet it was something to see back then.
Yeah, it's something to see
Wow.
now.
Well,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
As you're wandering and
Imagine
it's
all
just
the-
quiet.
The bustle that was going on
Yeah,
there.
it's just quiet, and you're reading these signs, and you're looking around, and say, all this stuff is
Wow.
going on. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Pennsylvania's ghost town.
it is. Yeah.
Everyone talks about Centralia, which is like a ghost town, but this one I hadn't heard about.
Well, here's the
beforehand.
thing. If you go on Wikipedia for
Yeah.
Pithole, at the bottom of the page, it has the thing, a link to Pennsylvania ghost towns. And I went on there like a month ago when I started this.
Yes.
And I look, and there's a lot. And you know, I saw
I
it
love
last
that
night
stuff.
again, and I said, no, I have to stay away from this.
I
gotta-
love that stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, but I'm sure like Centralia is on there.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. So.
Very cool. So if you're up for the drive,
Yeah, it is kind
Totally,
of on the
do
other
it.
side of
Well, if
the
you're
state.
here.
So.
but maybe some of our viewers are not too far and they need to go check
right.
it out. But that sounds cool. I want to go check it out.
Okay.
Like tomorrow. Maybe
Yeah.
I won't come
You
in
go there,
tomorrow.
and then on Thursday I'll go get pretzels somewhere.
Exactly. It's going to
Yeah.
be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right. That's it.
And thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you next time with another cool place to visit here on Where Have You Been Lately?